Now there's my butternut squash growing into the corn. That's supposed to provide ground cover, which I've already got with this ground cloth. And then the beans use the corn as a trellis, the climbing beans. And this is the way the Indians did it. It's called the three sister method. And the Indians did not use this sweet corn. They used a field corn, which was probably a whole lot heavier stalk than what this is. And if I had this to do over, I would do it with a field corn that I knew that had a heavy stalk. Um, and then I would plant fewer beans in this. I mean, I can understand the concept of it, and it probably will work well for others. And I'm not going to blame the three sister method. I'm going to blame myself for not doing enough research on this, because you need a heavy stalk of corn to hold these beans up. So if we're going to continue to grow corn and beans together, because they just pair so greatly, because the corn uh, takes nitrogen that the beans provide, and it helps them grow. And the corn will provide a little bit of shade for those beans, and that's a good combination. But as far as a climbing bean, I'm going to have to pass on that, at least until I do a whole lot more research on this to try to figure out exactly what I need to do, because this is just a mess, and it's hard to get the green beans out of here. Some of this corn I will not make an ear off of, so keep that in mind if you're planning on doing this method. Well, that bean right there is really too big for a green bean as far as breaking up and cooking. I could use it for a shelly bean. But what I'm going to do is leave this on the vine for a couple more days. Come out here, when that starts drying out, I'm going to pick that, and that's going to be my seed bean, because these are an heirloom. I believe it is called a market bean, the pole bean. So I'm going to use those for our seed in a few days. Now, sometimes when I'm picking beans, especially in something like this, you can wiggle that vine, and I felt that bean move. You can tell when there's a bean a lot of times just by moving that vine, and you can feel that bean will wiggle, and you can feel the weight of that moving. It's like a pendulum moving on that vine. So if you can't see it, you might could do it that way. If you're into the thick of things with the green beans, so you can just wiggle that vine a little bit, and you can find the beans. Sometimes. Not sure what to call that. Maybe we'll call it the bean force. Nah, sounds a little corny. I don't know. What do you call it? It's kind of like a trot line. I don't know if y'all have ever run a trot line, but you'll put a trot line out to catch catfish, and you'll pull up on that line and just put a little pressure on it. And if there's fish on it, you'll feel a little tug. I don't care if it's a 100-foot long trot line. You'll feel that little tug on there when you put pressure on it. And that's kind of the same principle of this. You just kind of wiggle it, and you'll feel the pendulum. Now, that doesn't always work, and I'm not going to say you're never going to miss a bean that way, but it does help find more beans. At least it does for me. Hope it helps y'all. All right, there's the beans I got off of my row, the Three Sisters experiment. The sweet corn just broke down, and the beans just kind of piled up among themselves and on top of each other. And what beans I did find, I had to hunt and really search for. And I'm just not impressed with this method, and I probably will not be doing this again anytime in the future. I may do it as an experiment at a later date with some maybe field corn that I know that has a heavy stalk. But that bucket should have been full on the first picking. That row is 50 to 60 foot long, and that first pick, that bucket should have been full and should have taken me about half as long as it did to get those. So just so you know, if you're planning on trying or thought about trying that three-sister method of growing beans, corn, and squash, just keep this in mind and find a heavy stalk corn, plant your beans light. You know, the Indians used this method and they used a heavier stalk of corn. But if they'd have had a tractor supply or another farm store, they could have went and got some cattle panels and run their beans up on. I'm going to say they'd have done that. So, just saying.